Hello people of YouTube, my name is Brad, this is my channel, and I'm Orange, and this week in 3D Metal Model News. Going to Metal Earth's website produces the same results as it did last week. Nothing has been updated. However, they did release a newsletter, the January newsletter, yesterday, and in their beginning or top of that newsletter is a picture of the Willys Overland Jeep that was recently released and in stores available to buy, which is something that unfortunately I missed last week. Before recording the video, I checked their website and did not see it. However, shortly thereafter, in the process of recording and editing, it did become available, and it has been available. The Willys Overland has been available since last Friday. Again, I apologize. I did find that out as I was putting the video together and put it in the description, I believe, last week, but wasn't able to add it into the video. Also, with a new newsletter coming out, they, of course, are running another Metal Earth challenge. And in the newsletter, it says, it's a Metal Earth free-for-all. Show us your Metal Earth spirit. 2 participants to send marketing@fascinations.com. Their creative Metal Earth entry could win a mysterious bundle of models. Anything goes this challenge. Rules, creativity, creativity, creativity. Deadline, February 14th, 2020. When submitting your entry, please include your full name and mailing address. Winners will have their image featured in the February newsletter. Normally, I would provide a link to that newsletter in the description down below. Usually, the newsletter does have a link where you can see the HTML version. This newsletter didn't, and I wasn't able to find a link for it. However, if you want to subscribe to future newsletters, go to the Metal Earth website, scroll down to the bottom, and kind of at the bottom right is a little box that you can type in your email address to get the newsletters sent to you once they come out. I do want to say congratulations to Will Rose for a very creative photo, basically mimicking the Abbey Road album cover of the Beatles, if I've got that correct, with Star Wars droids as the people crossing the street, and a few models littered in the background, like the DeLorean and looks like one of the Disney exclusive trash cans. It's a very interesting, very creative picture, and also congratulations to Donnie Bionich. Apologize if I've gotten that name incorrectly, for the Flintstones themed image with the Flintstones and their car and some dinosaur skeletons in the picture as well. So very neat, very creative, and congratulations to you two. Poking around on AliExpress, there wasn't a whole lot to find this week. Again, we're kind of in the New Year, Chinese New Year, so there's not a lot going on. I did find one model, MMZ 91, the Atlantis Hotel in Dubai, or Atlantis Hotel Dubai. I don't believe I've seen that model before. I think it was listed under a new section in one of the stores. Brass model. The finished size is 14 by 3 by 5.8 by 6.3 centimeters. 2 sheets, two 11 by 11 centimeter sheets, and 3-4 stars. I'm not sure if that's a 3 out of 4 stars or it's in a 3 to 4 stars range. I'm guessing maybe 3 out of 4 stars difficulty. Not real sure with the star system on Nanyuan, which is I usually refer to as HK models. This is the MMZ store, I think it is, and a lot of their models they put MMZ in front of it as if it's MMZ brand, but this is a Nanyuan model, so probably HK Nanyuan. I don't know. The Nanyuan models are a bit fuzzy as exactly who's putting those out, but I will include a link in the description down below if you're interested in that model. It is a fairly interesting architectural type model, somewhat plain, but I don't know a lot about architecture, but it is an interesting model. Again, description for the link. I did find a Metalhead store, which I found kind of interesting. Now, Metalhead, I don't know a whole lot about them, but I occasionally see a few people, or at least one person, putting Metalhead models up in the Metal Earth subreddit. And according to Mr. 693670 and one of the posts that they put up, the Metal Earth or Metalhead models are kind of hard to find. They are made by a Chinese company called Metalhead. According to Mr. 693670, the company basically buys the knockoff models and then paints them, colors them, and then sells them online. Now, according to this individual, the stores will, the models are hard to find. There'll be a store that opens up and it'll have the metalhead models for a couple of weeks maybe, and then the entire store, models and all, will disappear, and then sometime later another store by a different name will pop up with the models, so you kind of have to constantly track them down. Now, I did this research recently and noticed a couple of days ago there was a metalhead store on AliExpress. And I'm still piecing together what's going on here, if maybe the store has reappeared. This store appears to have Peace Cool models. It also appears it has models that are labeled as metalhead, though I don't know if it's the same metalhead models that these other individuals are posting. The post that I got that information from had a bunch of Star Wars models, and I didn't see any Star Wars models in the metalhead, but that doesn't mean that they haven't decided to color something different this time. I did also notice, I don't know if this is the same store. It's reopened under a different name, and this time they decided to call it Metalhead, but I will be keeping an eye on it. I favored the store, so each week I'll be checking it out to see what's going on, to see if it's even still there. I did also notice that they have what appears to be Time for Machine models in there, some of the older models, but it's not called Time for Machine. They're called Metalhead models, I think. They seem to have a lot of information that's basically copied from Time for Machine, including pictures, although there are at least one picture in most of the models that looks to not be from Time for Machine. It looks to be like the models are on a stack of maybe, what was they, anime type books or something, some type of colorful book, and the models in those pictures seem to have a duller metal, like it's not as shiny as the Time for Machine one. So a lot of things are pointing to this as some sort of knockoff. The prices are okay. Honestly, the models I think you can get for about that same price through Time for Machine directly. So I really am dubious about the idea of buying any models from them without any further information. I'm kind of thinking they're not authentic Time for Machine models. But I thought I'd point that out since I'm talking about the store. I will put a link to the store in the description down below so you can check it out for yourself. They do have a lot of Peace Cool models. They have some interesting metalhead models. Some of them are in color. And they have these, what looks like Time for Machine knockoff models as well. I'll be keeping an eye on that, but that pretty much brings us to the end of what's new this week. So let's talk about topics of the week. And topic last week, I had to talk about a video where I made about flying model parts or flying parts and pretty much how to avoid them without going back in depth with it again. You sometimes run into situations where parts go flying and they're hard to find, and I made some comments about things that I do to avoid it and pointed out the video and left the question open to anybody about what they do to try and avoid that situation, how do they handle it. And I got a response from Richard Kroll. For steel parts, I have a telescoping rod with a magnet on the end. I have found most of the drop parts. However, several of them were found while looking for a lost part from a subsequent model. Brass parts are more of a problem. I use a combination of small flashlights, and when that fails, rug crawling, not my favorite method. I make an effort to work on small parts over the top of the plastic shoebox that I use to store the models in process. This reduces the chance of a part making a break for the floor. And I pretty much would agree with everything in there. I've done the floor crawl. I've used flashlights. I've got a telescoping magnet, although since the move I haven't been able to find it. I have an even bigger magnet that covers more floor area, and frequently I find things other than what I'm actually looking for at the time. I do work over a table and I have some things around me that will mostly deflect the parts back to me, but sometimes things just go off in an unpredictable location, never to be seen again. Albert Fish comments, personally, I don't feel the need to use clippers. You can get most parts with one or two trees out very easily. With more trees, just hold the good metal and use pliers or something on scrap metal to bend it out. Only tiny, delicate pieces with lots of trees, I need to use scissors with these pieces. There is a risk of them flying out, but I find it hunching over the piece or guarding it with a hand will stop the piece from catapulting away. The tidier the room, the easier it will be to find, though. The only thing I can recommend if it does go flying is use a good light and look for any glint of metal. Sometimes they do end up further than you would think, so don't throw in the towel too early with this search. And that last bit's a good piece of information. Sometimes they will fly either in a direction that you don't expect or farther than you think. And unfortunately, the areas that I work in tend to have a small amount of clutter, so there are areas where things can get lost, and they are much more difficult to find. It does help if you have a tidier area to find things. I just honestly have a lot of stuff in the area that I work in, a lot of containers, a lot of models, a lot of boxes, a lot of just things on shelves nearby, and if it goes in the wrong direction, that's not a good sign. Well, these are good suggestions and experience from others that have built a lot of models. As far as twisting things out without clippers, I used to do that when I first started building these models, and just too many times I accidentally bent or folded or wore out the wrong part and ended up with broken parts before I even went to build with them. And I just found the clippers were just faster and safer to use, but you do run in the risk of things flying off, and again, I do try to cup and guard things that I have any inclination might go flying off in the distance, or hold some part of it while I'm clipping it. You'll see that I actually have a method where I'll clip 2 or 3 tabs and turn the part and hold the side away from the tab that I'm clipping so that the part doesn't go flying, if at all possible. For this week, I'm going to address a question that gets asked from time to time, and it was asked here recently. I'm not going to give the username, unfortunately. It's a username that I just really preferred not to say in my video. The question is, what is your favorite model you have made, and which is the biggest? And I have had this question asked before, and I have attempted to answer it, but it's been a while, and I've built new models, and it's always kind of changing a little bit. The thing is I hate picking an absolute favorite. There's so many factors to go into picking a favorite. Usually when I think of favorites, the ones that come to mind, the MU Megatron model was a really enjoyable build. It was really interesting to see how the things come together and how things were layered. It ends up being a really big model, very stunning model, really stands out in the collection. I've built other Transformers models, but the Megatron came together the best out of all of them, and I really enjoyed that one. I really enjoyed the Millennium Falcon models for the most part, though there are ups and downs. The one from Solo, while not my favorite design, because I grew up with Star Wars and I'm very familiar with the front shuttle pod being missing, it is a fantastic looking model and was fairly easy to build. So it's up there, but it's hard to say that's an absolute favorite. I was really taken by the Iconics ship models, namely the battleships like the Missouri and the Yamato. Those were just fun to build, especially the Yamato was a lot of fun to build, and challenging but fun, and just you end up with this fantastic and very sizable and very detailed model, and I really enjoyed that. I do have a thing for ships, not just spaceships, mostly spaceships, but seafaring ships as well. I'm really fascinated by them. I've visited USS North Carolina on 2 different occasions, so there is a spot in my heart for naval ships as well. And speaking of Iconics in Star Wars, the fairly recently done Star Destroyer, while some of it was a real pain in the model that I built, had some errors that hopefully they are correcting by now, the finished result is fantastic, and I really love that model as well. However, the biggest model, size-wise, is probably the Mega R2-D2. It was a little bit of a challenging model. It was pretty much the same parts as the little mini R2-D2, or the regular size model of R2-D2, just on a much larger scale. So challenging wise, it wasn't that challenging. Being bigger, it was kind of easier to build. If you take that out of the equation, because it is a very difficult model to come by. It wasn't a regular production run. It was just a sample model for people to put on display, and it's hard to get it. Take that out of the equation, the next biggest thing, I'm pretty sure, would be the MU Megatron that I've already talked about. It is a very big model. The MU Transformers models are rather sizable, and that would be the next biggest thing. So I'm curious, what are some of the biggest models you guys have put together, and what out of your collection is your favorite? Feel free to answer in the comments down below. I'm curious to see what you have to say. And, well, I'll see you next week, see if anything new is coming out. We'll be getting towards the end of January, and hopefully things are starting to liven back up a little bit. Thank you for watching. Thank you to my Patreon supporters for supporting this channel for another month. And as always, keep on keeping on.